All right. Greetings to everybody. Thanks for being here tonight. We're starting to get more laser focused here on getting state coordinators and county coordinators. So just for the record of those who watched this video before I started recording, I was trying to get all the names lined up here. I'm not sure if it shows on the video after it's uploaded, but I've got the names. If it does show up where it's the state where they're from, first name is fine. They can put in a last name if they want. And then SMC for state militia coordinator, CMC for county militia coordinator. And again, I would encourage everybody to know that at righteousarmy.org, I pretty much have said all I can say, right? I've said all I can say. I've documented and written, you know, between my blogs and my expressions of what I'm endeavoring to do to put forth an effort to get those men and women who are of like mind, who are generally associated with center to right, conservative, Christian, patriot, truther, Trump supporter, you know, type people, those who would kind of be labeled in that or categorized as that center to right type person. And it can include people that are left, but again, that's where it starts getting a little fuzzy, right? Because pretty much people center to right are concerned about the extreme liberal, leftist, progressive agenda, which we're opposed to. So to the extent that there's things that we all agree upon, it's been outlined on the website. To the extent that there's things that we are opposed to, it's been outlined on the website. And the number one, my last and final blog, which is on the states page at the website, when you scroll down a little, you'll see quick links for all the states. So you can click on your state and see who the state coordinators and county coordinators are in your state. You'll also see underneath that are essentially blogs. If you keep scrolling through the blogs, you'll start seeing the state flags because those were produced as blogs. And then I made them state pages. So they're kind of blogs / state pages. So the top blog has 3 blocks, ABC, like little children's kindergarten blocks, right? Play blocks. That blog is my last and final blog because it puts everything into laser focus. When we first started doing this, I mean, I'm putting forth an effort to unite those of us who are like mine. Well, what could I do, right? Hey, Josh, I'm in the middle. Hey, brother, I'm in the middle of a Zoom meeting right now. You're welcome to join. Just so you know, I'm on. You can come in if you want, but I got to go. Talk to you soon.
I'll check with you. Okay, I'll be there.
Okay. That's Josh out of Wisconsin. He's going to join in. So when it first started, I mean, I do take the credit and the thankfulness unto God that it came to me. Hey, let's get those of us who are of like mind to really start coordinating lawfully peaceful, organized county to county, state to state, under the premise of the reality that we, the people, are the militia, right? And again, I've already addressed all the stuff about creating the new name, the new understanding of the militia. Everything I can say is on the website. Probably everybody here is familiar with that, but we want to make sure that when we do a video, I at least allude to it so people watching the video know. And that's a big part of what the state coordinators and militia coordinators are doing as well. I mean, it's a resource, right? The website, righteousarmy.org. You can tell them, read the blog, read the ABCs, because that's the laser focus now. As I indicated a little bit ago, that over the last few weeks, I was trying to make the point that I don't want the national militia meetings to become this online feel-good social thing. No, it's about getting people to start joining forces, but becoming active in their community, where again, they can be either an A, meaning they're just happy to be connected and be in the National Militia Directory, or a B, yes, man, I'm proactive. I'm going to put forth an effort in my county, recruit, get business cards, you know, get a shirt, militia shirt, you know, wear it around. It's got the website domain name on it, talk to people. And I could do that in my county and bring people. So eventually county militia coordinators should be having a Zoom meeting just like this in their county. You're the county militia coordinator, which again, there could be 2 or 3 or 4 of you working together in your county to get like-minded people in your county to come together and have a weekly militia meeting for your county. The state coordinators should be having, and Chris Honan in North Carolina is one of the first so far to get to that level where he's putting forth the effort now to have state meetings for North Carolina. We have 4 people who have stepped up to the plate in North Carolina to say, sure, we'll work together as state militia coordinators and start getting our counties organized. So tomorrow night is a state North Carolina state meeting. I talked about that with Chris today because Chris said he sent it out to people from even different states, different state coordinators. And I said, that's fine, but really, Chris, focus on your state meetings just being for your state, right? Come in, state coordinators should be coming to the national militia meetings, and the county militia coordinators should be going to their state militia meetings that the state militia coordinators are putting on. Having said that, certainly anybody's welcome to go to any county meeting or any state meeting or even the national militia meeting. But for purposes, again, of trying to get laser focused and get people proactive and really hitting the target, I'll repeat it. As time goes on and we're growing and we're getting more proactive people to put forth an effort to organize like-minded men and women on the issues we agree upon and the issues we're opposed to and what we're trying to achieve here with regards to the militia, even to the extent that I'll get an occasional criticism about, oh, in fact, if he's still with us here, yeah, Beware Mouse. He's a radio man and a radio host. He's got a great radio show. I go on with him sometimes. He made the point to me on the phone just the other day. Mike, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot with militia. I understand you're trying to change the image. And I said, well, no, that's precisely right. We have to stick with that reality because we have to keep driving the point, which is why I'm also using the URL Righteous Army, right? Nationalmilitianetwork.com points and forwards to Righteous Army. militiausa.org points and forwards to Righteous Army, because ultimately that's what we need. We need a righteous army. That's what we need. And to the extent that it's an army, hey, an army is a group of people. And hold that thought, Alan. And raise your hand if you do want to say something, please. To the extent that we are endeavoring to, again, get all of us who are of like mind on key issues. None of us are all going to agree on everything, right? We're going to have Catholics and Mormons and Seventh-day Adventists and Baptists, all with different ideas, different philosophies, different beliefs, different opinions. That's fine. But I think I've done a good job of highlighting the things that we can agree upon, pretty much all of us who are even a little left to center to right. We can, 80% of the population can agree upon the things that I've indicated we can all agree upon. And that is on like maybe 2 or 3 blogs ago, but it's linked in the most recent blog on the things we agree upon and the things that we're opposed to. So that's kind of our message. Now, Charles, who's with us, is a master at common law. And we've said from the beginning that everything we're doing is lawful, peaceful, and organized and open and transparent. So the tip of our proverbial spear is our message. It's our message: righteousness, rightness, God, traditional family values, Constitution, Bill of Rights, things that most Americans grew up on over the last 20, 30, 40 years. Over the last 20 or 30, it's been getting bad because the enemy has infiltrated the United States, the whole world. They're endeavoring to bring it down. So those of us who still hang on to God, traditional family values, moral virtue, moral concepts, we got to come together and we need to build as a strong unit. And as we do that, the notion that the militia is ultimately the last alternative, because everything we're doing is lawful, peaceful, open, and transparent. We're not, and we're changing the image of this concept people have about the good old boys in the backwoods. No, it's about a community effort. It's about gun safety training, a good community thing. It's about cooperative, working together with our county sheriffs. It's about all these things that pretty much, again, everybody here should know. It's all outlined on the website. So we got now a really good base here of people who have come on, who have all stepped up to say, I'll be a state coordinator. I'll be a county coordinator. People who are putting forth an effort in their state to organize all their counties, in their county to organize their people. So what I'm hoping as time goes on here, when we have our national militia meetings, again, it's not a social get together or a feel good. I went to a national militia meeting. It's mainly supposed to be for state coordinators so we can all come on and discuss key issues. Generally having people like Charles on here to discuss the common law approach to being able to have options for dealing with things lawfully, because that's ultimately what we're doing, is moving forward lawfully. The tip of our spear is the law. The point of the spear is our message. The tip is the law, and we are the shaft. We're growing, and the longer that is, the more we've got to throw at the enemy. So we're coming together with the law on our side, God on our side, morals on our side, the Constitution on our side, common law on our side. So having said that, I appreciate everybody being here. This was a little bit of cleaning house. I need to know, even doing this video, anybody that's not already on the National Militia Directory, an A is at least on the National Militia Directory. The Bs, county coordinators, and Cs, state coordinators, are going to be on the state page. So anybody that watches this video, if you expect your name to at least be an A on the National Militia Directory, you need to call me, because I got a bunch of people on my phone. I got 71 people on my phone saved, as they all stepped up to say, I'll be, part of making this happen. I got 400 people on the mailing list now that have stepped up to say, I want to be a part of this. But we've got 4, 8, 12, 16, right? 19 people here right now. So there's people that couldn't make it tonight. That's understandable. If you see this video, and even if you've never heard of us and all of a sudden you're hearing about this great thing we're doing, call me 305-910-6206 or email me at righteousarmyusa@gmail.com and read the ABC blocks, the top blog on the state's page at Righteous Army, because that puts it all into perspective. You're either an A, a B, or a C. Tonight we have a lot of C's and some B's. You're raising your hand, Jessica, so I'm going to let Joe go, and then I'm going to call on you, Jessica. Do you know how to raise the hand icon, Jessica?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, please raise that icon. And Joe, go ahead, brother.
Hey guys, nice to be here with all of you. My name is Joe Malone, and a little bit about me. I've been a militia coordinator with the Lightfoot Militia since 2017. I've been a constitutional activist since 2016 after being incarcerated and enduring a lot of judicial misconduct. And in regards to, I know, yeah, there may be people out there who are a little left center or maybe like kind of liberal minded and who would belong in our group, and they're constitutional people themselves. And I've had success recruiting people like that and convincing them that the Republican Party is the right choice for their beliefs. But then we have to use pressure to really convince right-wing legislatures that they need to focus on the topic of judicial reform, because there's a tactic that I've observed for years when it comes to people who are exploited by the judicial system, and their grievances go completely unheard. And that's why you see the left wing exploding, useful idiots like Antifa or people in Black Lives Matter, because nobody is really addressing the solutions to judicial misconduct, whether it's the criminal courts, the civil courts, or even the family courts. It's by design. If you are familiar with the DCS corruption movement, we have recruits from there. We have recruits from the exploited fathers movement. And just yesterday, I was at a Carrie Lake and Blake Masters event, and I recruited a few men who are really just everyday regular Americans. They're fathers that are concerned about the future for their children. And because of the whole Great Awakening and learning about the powers to be in these international banking families, who are really the ones who are funding the corruption of our judicial system and exposing to people the devil in those details, there's a lot of success. And I agree with that, what you said, Mike, about the statistic about like 70 to 80%, I've always said, of Americans really want liberty. They want to be left alone. And that the mainstream media, they're the real dirtbags who are controlling the narratives. Every time a social movement comes up, the real solutions get hijacked by like people like Black Lives Matter or Antifa. And it's such a complicated subject. That's why I've taken the liberty to write this national redress of grievances, which is what we're focusing on here locally. And what I was saying to you, Mike, about Coalition Purple Rose, which is about the redress of grievances and creating a symbolism about the sovereignty of the people. In fact, Charles, you're a common law expert. I invest a lot of my time in common law as a political prisoner myself. After I was illegally searched in 2019 in December by the FBI, my firearm was confiscated. I was thrown in custody, denied bail, denied a lawyer. And when they talk about that prejudicial, politicized judicial system, I experienced to a whole new degree with the federal court system. And it's a complicated matter, but yeah.
Yeah, forgive me. I'm going to try to moderate based on time too, because I know you have a lot to say. If I ask you to put your hand down now so I could take Jessica, because she had her hand up earlier too, and then I'll have to move to Joe as well. Please put your hand back up and just kind of get at the end of the line. If you have more to say, to come back on, because I got to keep moving it to get some people on. You've made a great point that we're all trying to deal with, and that's the corrupt judicial system. And we are going to address that tonight, and Charles is going to address that in some detail, and you'll have an opportunity to go back and forth with Charles when he starts talking on it as well. So
Sounds good.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, and we'll have you back on here in just a second. Go ahead, Jessica.
I just wanted to get your contact phone number, and also I'm fully aware of the corruption in our Tennessee local Hamilton County judicial and voting and systems. I just dealt with that firsthand with our mayor.
Okay. Yeah. My information is on the website. My name,
Okay.
my bio, my mailing address, my email, my phone numbers, everything's right there on the homepage at the top, and it's on the militia page as well. Will that be good enough for you?
Yep, that is fine. I was just writing notes, and but no problem. I'll
Yeah,
back on.
righteousarmy.org. And feel free to raise your hand again if you have some more to say. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you.
Joe from Ohio. Go ahead, brother. Go ahead and unmute. You're muted.
Okay. Yeah. So, Mike, I just wanted to thank you for putting this all together because, in my own state, I wanted to do something myself. When I saw your ad on TikTok, I thought this is great. So I really appreciate all your effort. One of the things that I called you about Friday was to talk about a meeting I set up with my local police chief and his lieutenant. He wants to be there also. Of my concern, which kind of goes together with everything we're doing, the concern of all the chemtrails in the sky. Friday, I just watched all day long, the material that's being dispersed or sprayed. And I wondered, how is this affecting our health? And so I think when we see things that the government's doing without having us be participants or choosing why they're doing it, we need to start, basically barking like a dog at somebody. So I went to my police chief and I have a meeting set up for next Thursday. So
let me interject on that. I want you to continue because I want to let you know in case you missed it. I'm sure there's some people here now that know and knew ahead of time that we're going to address that tonight. So there's the man. That's the man that brought the issue up. He's the man. The reason I sent out the text and the email the other day indicating we're going to be discussing bioweapons and chemtrails. So thank you, Joe. And Joe, also, you'll have an opportunity here to go back and forth with Charles because Charles is going to be addressing some of the things we can do with regards to common law and common law juries on how to approach that. And there was, and forgive me, because remember, I'm one guy and I've got a lot of names and a lot of text messages and a lot of emails coming at me. So was it Jessica or Allie that sent me the letter that was written to the EPA trying to get some answers on it?
That was me.
Allie, yes. Yeah, so she sent a great, I'm going to forward that out actually to the mail list, just so you know. I haven't gotten to it yet. It's very tough for me to keep up with all of this because again, even trying to organize people, everything I'm doing is manual. I'm always saying it's going to be nice when a George Soros of the right comes along where we have a platform where people can go to the site, click on their state, click on their county, type in that they want to be A or B or C, put their information in, everything gets in a database. That'll be great.
Mike, quick question.
Yeah.
Hey, I noticed somebody sent me a little message on here that popped up, but in a way, is there a way to go back and review those?
Yeah, and who was it that said you were going to help assist tonight? Was that you, Heather? Who was that? Somebody indicated they.
Me.
Was that
Me.
you, Heather?
Me.
Oh, Jessica. Yeah. So Jessica, I appreciate that offer to help. If you can help us with that, maybe by keeping tabs on the chat.
Yeah.
That'll be great. And for those.
I work for myself and I have the time, and I've served as the secretary on the executive chair member doing these kind of things.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So Joe, and for everybody else, because not everybody's familiar with Zoom all the time. If you move your mouse around, near the bottom, you should see on the left, there's like a mute for your microphone and then a stop video, security, participants. If you click on participants, it should open a screen to the right that shows everybody that's here. Or you could just be full screen without that. Then there's a screen share for when you want to share something. The reactions again, that's where there's a long bar that says raise hand, and then there's, you know, thumbs up and clapping and happy faces up top. And then apps, I'm not sure, whiteboard, I'm not sure, but the
I found the chat.
right on the more. Do you see where it says more? If you click on more,
Yep,
it says
I found it.
chat, right? And then you click on chat and it'll open up the chat for you and you can follow that. And
Sweet.
thanks for
Thank you.
helping out with that, Jessica from
Point of
Tennessee.
order.
Good old, I heard that Tennessee, I mean, this is what I heard, is the first state that decided they're going to make it unlawful to have transgender operations and surgeries anymore on children. If anybody heard that, I had heard being the Bible Belt state, that would make sense.
Point of order, Mike.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Everybody should be muted if they're not talking.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Nick. Yeah, if everybody can mute if you're not talking, just to be sure there's no background noise. And if you have something to say, just again, do like I'm going to do right now, where you can hit that raise hand like this, and then we'll get you in. So go ahead. Thank you, Nick. And let's segue this now into, this is a big part of what we're going to talk about tonight. Let's do this right off the bat. Ready? Here we are, and we represent collectively many voices across the USA. All right. Ready? I'm raising my hand. Anybody want to raise your hand with me? I know that they are spraying chemicals in the sky. The government acknowledges that they're spraying in the sky. They try to claim that it's for geoengineering and in making clouds so they can make it rain where there's a drought, but they're going to lie. They're going to create false stories. Just to make it clear here right now, being the guy that founded thebigvirushoax.com and spent 2 years, 24/7, putting all the information that's out there about viruses, vaccines, bioweapons, how they're using the concept of viruses as a cover story so they can put bioweapons out into society, synthetic snake venom. If anybody heard the snake venom thing and thought it was BS, no. There are companies that synthesize synthetic. They get the proteins and replicate them to make synthetic snake poison. So there's no question in my mind. I wouldn't doubt it if that's in the chemtrails. There was an article that came out a few months ago. Again, internet, right? People are going to be what's true, what's not. Yeah, we have to search it out. And there's false information that's always put out. But to the extent that we know there's spray in the sky, that's a fact. We know about the barium and the aluminum and other things. I want anybody that's here tonight that has information to put the information out, raise your hand, share what you know, because this is me saying on behalf of many people and everybody here to say, government officials, you're going to be held accountable. You must be held accountable. I tried to contact Ron DeSantis on numerous occasions. He's in charge of the Civil Air Patrol, right? I mean, he's got air. He could send up aircrafts to get him out of here. All governors can do that. Why are they letting them fly over our nation and spray their poisons? They need to be held accountable, all of them, every government official. So now we're talking about a big bad boy. So it'll be nice for you to come in, Charles. Let me let Joe finish his point real quick, Joe, because you're going to come back and forth because we're going to let Charles get on here on what some of the lawful things are. But anybody that's here, feel free to voice your opinion like I did. Even if you want to raise your hand just to say, I concur, you're spraying the skies and you need to be held accountable. Just if you want your voice saying that, because this video is going out and it goes to every sheriff in the state of Florida. It goes to the governor of Florida. It goes to many government officials. So this is our official cry, our official plea as the militia nationally to say, stop it. Show us what you're spraying. We want the paperwork. We want the canisters. We want all the documents. We want to know what's being sprayed, why it's being sprayed. What's your story? Where's the proof? Where's the evidence? We have a right to know. We have a right to know. You can't just spray us like bugs and think you're going to get away with it, which you've been doing for years. And now we're going to put a stop to it. Go ahead, John.
Yeah. So what I did to prepare for my meeting next week was just get a few things from the internet. And one of the sites that I would suggest is a Dane Wingington. I guess he's out in the Northwest, and he's been on this topic for about 10 years, and he's got a lot of great information at his website. You can find him on YouTube. But I wanted to bring up 2 or 3 things that are very, very important, especially if you've got young children, older folks with any kind of health problems. The reason they're doing this spraying, and it comes from a report that was done back in 1996, where the military industrial complex wants to own the weather. They want to own the weather forces, the jet stream, whatever they have to do to own the weather. They feel they can get superiority over the globe as far as any kind of military problem. So all this money has been invested into weather modification. It's called geoengineering. And one of the things that they do is they inject aerosols into the clouds, and then they
Water.
they're using they've even admitted it on CBS on one of their shows that they send these 1 trillion watt lasers up into the sky to heat it up to create these weather effects. And the chemicals that they use are very, very, I mean, I looked up, the aluminum is the big part of the chemical that they use. And this gets into the rain when it rains, and it's also in the cloud layer. There's been enough people that have tested these particles, and they're actually on the virus scale. They're not big particles. They're small nanoparticles. And otherwise, we would wake up in the morning after they chemtrail the sky, we'd find dust all over our lawns and in our driveway and our cars. But they made it in such a way that you can't perceive it, but you can't perceive what's going on above you in the sky. Now, if you have a 9-to-5 job, you're not going to see a lot of it. I'm a person that's on the road a lot, and I see it, and it bothers me. It really does. So these chemicals are at a nanoparticle size, and there are doctors who have come out and said that these nanoparticles, especially aluminum, can get past the blood-brain barrier and create a problem with the brain, especially young children who are developing brain, and then the older folks who, the brains are diminishing. So I'm just going to bring up these few points, and then I'll let you guys talk. I just wanted to say, this is a government out of control without our participation in their decision. They wanted to become superior in the military by controlling the weather, and so they're using all this now, all that they've learned. So I think it's not 2025 yet, but it's getting there.
Yeah, and again, I'm just cutting you for time to keep things moving on, but you'll come back on and say more. I do just want to interject on that, but I'm going to pass on it now and get to Tave. I went the wrong direction. Go ahead, Tave.
Thank you,
and I'll
Mike.
lower your guys' hands, and you can raise them back up after. Go ahead, Tave.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. As far as the chemtrail thing goes, I'm a firm believer. Going back to Vietnam, my father was sprayed with Agent Orange and died eventually from leukemia as an after effect of that same garbage. But what we see in the sky and what the planes that we watch isn't necessarily what everybody thinks it is, or as far as these chemtrails, because once you climb that high in altitude, at 40 degrees, the temperature of those planes, jets, have to put out condensation. It's a fact. But they do admit to doing a lot of barium, and the spraying of the aluminum is awful, because not only does it get into the blood barrier of the brain, it's also, and Mike can contest to this, just like the COVID, they wanted to break down the lung blood capillaries so that your oxygen level depletes and you need to be put on a ventilator. It does attack that system as well. So they're attacking your lungs. But that scale is nothing in comparison to what we should worry about locally with the criminal mayors, the people that sit in office, the councils, and the crime that's being committed against children, the elderly, and general people in general, just alone, should be our main focus to getting what's going on. I'm 100% behind everybody who wants to do everything with chemtrails and everything else. But my focus would be, if I'm going to sit down in front of my police commissioner and do whatnot, I'm going to talk about things that I can actually put hands on right there and talk about something that's actually very, very serious. It's what's going on with the assaults and everything. And
yeah, thank you, Tave. I do have to say, I appreciate what you said, solid words. However, there's no question that the chemtrails versus contrails, con meaning condensation, right? Short for condensation. Yes, when hot engines go through cold air up there, they leave a condensation trail. But the condensation trail, pilots themselves will tell you that they'll only last for no more than 3 minutes. They will dissipate, because it is nothing more than heat in the cold, creating a water-based vapor. So that will dissipate quickly. It will not. No condensation trail is going to stay and go from horizon to horizon, thick as a plume, and then gradually actually start to fan out and then stay there from horizon to horizon and literally create a milkiness in the whole sky of contrail.
I have to there, because I can say is in comparison to something. Take, for example, a drag racer like myself, a burnout. When you commence that burnout, the level that it's highest is at the hottest point, like you're saying, but then it dissipates, and it doesn't do it snap, crackle, pop. It takes it a long time for that smoke to clear. The same thing, but I'm not saying it's not what they're doing.
I know,
but I think it's what you're saying is a barium for an actual reflection for something that's coming.
Well, I want to address that too, because you brought that up. But you use this example of burning rubber. Okay, you don't go to a racetrack and see the cars burning rubber and then see the smoke from the burning rubber actually go out across the whole stadium and field and then just kind of linger the whole day, right?
You haven't seen me do a burnout then.
Well, again, and we're also talking about—
It does, Mike.
But we're also
not
talking about rubber on
car.
Right, but we're also talking about rubber on asphalt. The bottom line is geoengineering. Hold on, geoengineering.org or .com. I forgot which, but there's a link to it at thebigvirushoax.com. There are people, many people that have looked into it. Scientists. I've seen videos with doctors and engineers and scientists, biologists before a committee in a little council in California, going up one after the other, telling them about the levels of this, that, and the other on the mountains and the snow and the water on the grass. They're spraying, and to the extent that they know, and you alluded to it, that will come down into our breathable atmosphere. I personally, because we're walking a tightrope when we're dealing with this, because they push it into the conspiracy theory lane. And as all I can say is William Cooper in his book, Behold a Pale Horse, on page 167, 168, made beautiful points. A man that was in high intelligence before they took him out, made all the points and backed it with data in the back of his book, the top secret documents, that for decades, the world elites, the Club of Rome, the President's Council have been endeavoring to, what can we do about the world's ever increasing population? We can't just go out and kill people. We need to find some way in a laboratory to create a microbial, which isn't necessarily biological, it could be chemical, but a microbial way of putting something out that we can therefore call it a virus and get away with it. Because the virus, just for the record, some of you maybe know this, some of you don't. I do. No virus, none, not one. Coronavirus, no virus has ever been purified and isolated and set aside as a specimen and said, there's your virus. Never, it's never happened. Let alone taken and put into a healthy person and made them sick. All the information on that is at thebigvirushoax.com. That's a fact. There are no viruses. They're using the concept of viruses as a cover story to create bioweapons in laboratories and put them in the atmosphere, put them in the water, put them in the food. That's what they're doing, plain and simple. And I'll tell you, Dr. Leonard Horowitz, who wrote the book AIDS and Ebola, Emerging Viruses, who wrote the book nearly 20, 30 years ago, when he wrote it, he went with his traditionally trained mind thinking that there were viruses, but he had records of Department of Defense contracts with the pharmaceutical companies to create bioweapons. He got the records that they were assigned to create bioweapons. And then they use the narrative of viruses because it's a convenient cover story. So there's a whole lot more to it than most people know, but the contrails are one thing. They dissipate relatively quickly in comparison to what are clearly crisscross X's in the whole sky becoming covered. And they do claim it's for weather modification to control the weather, like Joe said. But I believe beyond that, it's also to create pulmonary distress in people so they can get them in the hospitals, put them on the remdesivir that causes them to crash and have pulmonary edema, and then put them on ventilators so they can kill them because there's a 90% death rate on ventilators.
Well, we have to think about this too, Mike.
To their plan. All right, hold on, Joe, I'm going to move on now.
They didn't do anything. They haven't done anything as far as government wise with what they did to people in Vietnam to this day. They haven't addressed the Agent Orange
and we're going to get to Charles is coming up. We're going to address some of the
caught.
legal aspects of this. So let's move on to Joe Malone, and then Joe, and then Josh, and then on to Charles. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, 1 second. Let me make sure. Can you guys hear me okay? All right, cool. Yeah, so in regards to geoengineered transhumanism, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Alana Freeland. Actually, she's a friend of mine on Facebook, and I've had some recent conversations after I first heard her on the radio on Coast to Coast when I was incarcerated. And she wrote a 3-book trilogy that talks all about chemtrails and what these are. And I think she's probably the best leading expert on the subject. In fact, I have her book right here. This is the 3rd book called Geoengineered Transhumanism, entitled The Environment, How It's Been Weaponized by Chemicals, Electromagnetism, and Nanotechnology for Synthetic Biology. And this synthetic biology, yes, they use chemicals to create this synthetic biology. It's not just it ends up in everything. It ends up in our water. They've traced higher amounts of barium and aluminum in our food supply, which is one solution to try and help get rid of this. It's, maybe it's a Band-Aid on a gushing wound, but some states are trying to coordinate indoor gardening and vertical agriculture. And that is a solution, to getting clean food. And it's one thing to also make ourselves independent by doing such things is by growing our own food. And we don't always have the resources to do that. But when we bring our communities together and our networks, that is something I think that we should focus on, is being completely self-sustaining. And but Alana Freeland is, if you are going to approach your sheriffs or your police chiefs about this subject, you want to be armed with the right information. For instance, in geoengineered transhumanism, her sources are all cited, and she even goes to patents by the government that explain all this technology and the sickening things that have been put and implemented into our technologies, whether it's smart TVs or video game systems. Video game systems, the new modern ones now actually have sensors in them that are designed to map brain waves and brain frequencies going on, basically designed to read our minds. And the biblical aspect, I think, of this is, in the Bible and in writings of many theologians, they talk about how the evil one, the devil, cannot read our minds. Only God can read our thoughts. And it seems to me so diabolical that, in fact, that Elon Musk is a guy who wants to create a brain interface, and they've already patented the technology to try and read our minds so that we have no freedom of conscience. And chemtrails and geoengineering is a route to go about that. And it's plugged in. It gets very complicated, but even the 5G technology used to create these symptomatic, fake illnesses. I agree with what you're saying, that this virus is just a concept that they use to cover up their trails of what they're really doing. And this book, really, it's a complicated read. I've read it. I've had to read it through more than once, but it's mind blowing. And I've been trying to think of a way to kind of compact it into a smaller format so that there's a content that can be presented to people like police chiefs and sheriffs. But this is all diabolical. This is the true work of evil world elites like Fauci and Soros and the depopulation agenda, and it can all be tracked back to them. In fact, one other good book I would recommend highly reading, because we have to know our enemy. You know, knowing our enemy, who our true enemy is key, and being able to teach people about this who are unaware when it comes to when we get our militia groups, our counties and our state groups going together. There's a book called Killing Uncle Sam, and it's by Republic Publishing. In fact, I have it here. The writers are Rodney Howard Brown and Paul L. Williams. One of these guys is actually a pastor of a church in Florida. And if you happen to live in Florida, these are great people to connect with, because their church is all about the truth about these evil works that are being done by these rulers. And it goes back to the 13 families who run the international banking and the IMF, the Rockefellers, the Tower of Babel, the Rothschilds, all these people. That this is their agenda. They want to enslave us. And the most disturbing thing about that is they want to literally control your mind. They want to be able to read your mind and track every transaction through this synthetic biology, and even be able to these aluminum particles that are sprayed in the atmosphere. They can use the electromagnetism to create the so-called brain interface. They can manipulate structures in our bloodstreams to form that transhumanism agenda, the merger of human DNA with technology. So that, and I'm convinced that's what the devil wants. So he wants us to be able to be transformed into robots that have no personal liberty or freedom anymore.
Right. Yeah, Joe, again, those were awesome points you made again. And you've alluded to a lot of good things. Again, feel free to raise your hand again. I want to move on to Joe. And we'll keep it going here. But think in terms of what Joe just said there. He said a bunch of good things. He's pointing out all these things they're doing. A lot of people are out there are waking up to these realities. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is get us all to unite and organize, county to county, throughout all our states, coming together in force. Go ahead, Joe.
So just a few more points. The reason I wanted to do this was to alert somebody higher up that can maybe discuss this statewide. I'm sure these police chiefs go to meetings, and I think the more we bring attention to these things, the more they're going to become aware, because everybody gets their information from the television. And think 95% of their information, if the television isn't talking about chemtrails, then there's no problem. Our government knows what they're doing. They know how to take care of the skies and the pollution, all that. So if they don't hear that it's a problem from the television, then they're not going to be aware. So it takes people that realize these problems to bring it to somebody higher up. So my next step was just to bring it to the police chief. And I'm looking at this as like a kind of a practice move before I go before a county sheriff, and, just start the ball rolling and getting this information to these higher ups who might, who are responsible for the health of the people of my city, so that's the reason I'm doing it. So
I want to interject on that. One of the things that Charles is doing is he's having me be the person to bring forth a official complaint, first time ever done, in the fashion that Charles wants to do it, with a common law jury against the evil minds behind the coronavirus global pandemic scamdemic. So we're going to be moving forward with that. And we're going to hear what Charles has to say in just a minute now, with regards to maybe even merging both of them, because I believe that they're related. Again, the spraying is affecting the way people breathe, and that's by design. So we'll be talking. Charles is going to make some points on that here after Josh. So again, raise your hand if you have more thoughts, guys. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, the last guy was saying, the guy before him, spot on. I like what he was saying. The last guy was saying, go to these sheriffs and all that stuff. They're Masons. They're all part of the shit. They have handlers and all that stuff. We got to take over the Republic. We got to take it back to be effective. But what I raised my hand about was I have seen, these chemtrails are not done from exhaust coming out of a plane. what it is, they got the whole plane, and they have these high pressure cylinders that are round. They hold 3,000 psi, and they have nozzles on the wings that spray the skies, and that's what they're doing. So it's a clandestine kind of thing, and whoever does it, they're sworn to secrecy, and they're not going to talk about it. That's all I have.
Yeah, thank you, buddy. And again, the fact that we're having this conversation, it's a conversation that needs to be had nationwide. We're really started here on a national level with our efforts, because this video is going to be sent out to everybody, and everybody should be taking this video and sending it to every sheriff in your state. You should be taking this video and sending it to your governor. You should be taking this video and sending it to every person out there that's an elected government official, because now they're hearing that we're addressing it and we plan on doing something about it. How are we going to do something about it, Charles? And let me introduce Charles again. Charles is out of Texas. For those that haven't seen him or heard him, he's our mastermind on common law. Eric Dinges has come in here before. We've got a lot of great minds on the law issue. You know, we've tried to address this over the last several months too, because there's a lot of things going on. Charles is the #1 go-to guy on common law. Eric Dinges is, you know, I would say second to him, but just as good in his own way. He's a common law kind of guy. But we've heard, one of the things people know I'm trying to do is to screen out, and we're here also to protect people, right? You know, FBI sting operations. We're here to make sure everything we're doing is lawful, correct, right, open, transparent, right? So to the extent that we'll even question whether somebody's an insider or they're trying to set somebody up, I'll make it clear in this video. We did a 9-hour video once, and Eric Dinges talks about David Straight like he's working with antivirus, who's working for the world elites. And David, you know, Straight heard that Eric Dinges was actually working for the FBI, and Rick Martin, who's the greatest. I mean, he's on equal par with Charles to me. Charles and Rick Martin. Rick Martin's with the Constitutional Law Group.us. He's the man. These guys know their stuff. They're smart and they know the laws. And, you know, Rick Martin indicated Dinges is an FBI guy, but I've know Eric pretty well, and I think that maybe he is, but it doesn't matter if he is. He seems to be very bright on common law, and he tends to always agree with with Charles on just about anything he says on common law, because we have Joseph here tonight, who's one of the North Carolina state coordinators who has Blog Talk Radio on behalf of the Republic for the United States of America, which is linked at the top of righteousarmy.org. And Joseph has gotten into some fisticuffs with Charles, right, on, you know, having some disagreements, which is fine. That's what we're all about here, is, you know, cutting through things and sorting things out. But I think that as far as I'm concerned, Charles is our brightest mind on issues of common law. And I do believe that there are things that can be put forth that he's going to talk about right now that have not yet been done. So Charles, please, in conjunction with what we've already talked about over the last months and what we're going to do with the big virus hoax, and now this issue of the chemtrails and poisoning us through the skies, what are your thoughts on all of this, Charles?
Thank you, Michael. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Okay.
I hear you
Good. I want to say I'm really delighted to see such a healthy group here. This is nice. The general purpose of how we're coming together here, Michael is providing a real good foundation with basically executive law enforcement, because militia people can be used for law enforcement when it's necessary to keep the peace. It's related to the Posse Comitatus Act, and that word Posse Comitatus, it applies at the county level, whereas militia is the same group of people organized together at the state level. So we got two terms to describe the same group of people, only the Posse Comitatus term is the term that's more proper to use when you're talking about the group under the control of the sheriff, whereas at the state level, under the control of the governor, the proper term would be militia. And that is separate from the judicial power, where I specialize. So see, as long as militia people are just here to help enforce justice and keep the peace through the courts, then they can't blame militia people for doing anything wrong, because all we're doing is organizing to follow judicial process and keep the peace. And so that decentralizes the executive power down to our grassroots real profoundly. And but we've also got in our constitutional system the judicial power. Every precinct in the USA has authority to try criminal complaints. This is what the Sixth Amendment is referring to, the states and the districts. And so that's a general jurisdiction judicial power, which is the most powerful judicial office in the USA. And it's at the grassroots, but we're not using it because we've been educated wrong. We've been indoctrinated to think that we got to look to the federal government in courts or the state government in courts to decide all the big issues, and we don't have any local community power. That's wrong. That's a lie from the pit of hell. We've got,
Yes.
we've got the right to do this at our own grassroots level in our own
Yes.
local communities. And one big thing, and to kind of just wrap up the high points, I want to salute Michael for focusing on the high points and bringing the big picture together in important conferences like this. It's easy to get bogged down in the details of proving that chemtrails exist or proving that the big virus thing is a hoax. And we can consume all kinds of time like that because people can, people that haven't done their homework can ask more questions than educated people can answer. Okay, so I dare suggest that conferences like this, we either need to be focused on organizing the militia or the interface that the militia goes through, which would be the judicial process, which Michael's going to help us a whole lot with. As soon as he gets ink for his printer, you got a report on the ink for your printer yet, Michael? Yeah.
I got the ink today. It was sitting outside in the rain and my wife brought it in. So I finally got ink and now I can print out that. I have a lot of things to print out and read. See, my thing is I have to print things out so that it's in front of me in paper form, so I can put on some reading glasses and get a marker and go line by line. So that's what I'm starting on tomorrow is the project that Charles and I are working on, reading the complaint that he made so far, which for the record, and Charles, you can elaborate on this, anybody that's here, I'll let you say it, Charles, as far as us getting names, getting jurors.
Yeah.
Go ahead and address that.
Thank you. Yeah, we're working on showing the complaint to people, and we've got a rough draft of the complaint. Michael's going to review it, make editorial changes, and then we've also got a rough draft of a jury verdict that we're hoping will be at least similar to our final product. And we're looking for people that say, yeah, subject to review and final adjudication, I'm willing to sign on to something like this. And once we get 12, we'll be ready to go. And I'd like to suggest real quickly, Mike, and then I'll yield, that same template that we're using for addressing the coronavirus and vaccines issue, we can use that to get a jury verdict adjudicating what's going on with these chemtrails. Okay, so it's a template that we can follow. And I'd be happy to work with people on addressing this coronavirus issue too. And if you look at,
let me interject, Charles,
Okay.
just some thoughts, because again, the way I see this, right, with what we're doing with Charles here is, as I've indicated from the beginning, a lot actually, since I've been doing this for a few months, I've covered it all. I've covered the people that have fear that I'm an FBI agent or somebody must be an FBI agent here. And I always say it doesn't matter if they are here, they're welcome. They can come have tea with me at my house because everything we're doing is lawful, peaceful, open and transparent, organized. And that's what we're going to do. That's what I'm absolutely determined to do at the very least, is to show that an effort has been put forth. I'm doing my best to spearhead that effort, to not only organize all of us who are of like mind, but to actually spearhead an effort to be able to say, we have articulated a lawful claim against criminals. We're saying they're criminals, and we're saying they're criminals because of this, this, and this. Here's a legal strategy and option for us to say that they need to be taken into custody. And that is actually pushing the de facto system and their judicial system, which we all know is corrupt, into a pickle, because now they either have to do something or they themselves are going to be called out, because we're only going to put forth facts and truth and evidence, and we're going to do it forcefully. Let Charles, I want to go to Jessica and then come back to you. So keep your hand up, Charles.
Go ahead.
Jessica, go ahead, unmute and go ahead.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Really quickly, I know you're busy. I have direct biochemical companies, one of them located on Smithsonian Way in New York City, that actively and openly sell things that go in our atmosphere through aerodynamics, aerosol, regardlessly if they're selling them for large form pesticides or whatever. You can go on the, I'll send the information over on one of those engineering chemical companies. They also put the particles in our water systems. We really need to pay attention to that. Also, some of the fertilizers that go into the ground we grow our food from actually produce chemicals that go into the atmosphere. And I have all the research. There is, the largest farm owner in America is Bill Gates. There's a lot of GMO stuff there. I can help y'all out with that. The Sixth Amendment is very, very important. I'm dealing with that right now. In Georgia, $160 million the governor Kemp invested in the machines, and then turned his back on Trump at the last minute. But anyway, I'm just really happy. I have a lot of information I can share with you guys, and but you can really actually chemically, like large scale format, buy the what is in the vaccine that reacts with the 5G, the not the hydras, but the metal that reacts with 5G. It's like, I mean, I've got so much information. It's just crazy, but I'll send that over to you guys. The chemtrails are one thing, but they don't use like pilots doing that. They have actually drones that do that, and they actually use those drones even to pollinate our Walmart food crops. They actually have the patent for a drone that is a bee. So I mean, it's right in front of us. I mean that's how the enemy works, the devil and whomever, and it's right in front of us. And we still have a country and a world worth fighting for. And just thank you guys so much. And I'll be letting you go now. Thank you.
And thank you, Jessica. And again, just to confirm, because when you first came on, again, I'm dealing with a lot of names that are coming in. I'm looking on the webpage now, and I do see you're on the state page in the county of Chattanooga. So I'm sure we had a conversation where you said, sure, I can be, kind of help to get things going in my county, right? So you would consider yourself to be a bee, right? On that ABC blocks?
I can, and I have the time. I work for myself. I do campaigns. I'm sorry. I do campaigns. I do my own campaigns. You can actually follow the flags individually to my home at the beginning of my subdivision at the mailboxes. And that's just out of my heart of patriotism. I talk to each neighbor and inform them of, things that are going on. So, yeah, I'm definitely a go-getter, and I believe that one act of kindness or one just, awareness can change a multitude. Look what just happened with Roe versus Wade. I mean, so let's, I'm not going down a casualty of the enemy. I'll go down fighting and at least showing the people what we stand for. And I'm absolutely willing to do that.
I appreciate it. I thought that you were. Again, a lot of names and coming at me quickly lately. So yes, just to be clear, she is a county militia coordinator in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So anybody in Chattanooga, you can find her information and contact Jessica.
Absolutely. Let's just make it happen.
Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's go to Joe and then we'll go back to you, Charles. Go ahead, Joe.
Which Joe?
Joe Malone, you got your hand up?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Hey, thanks for that, Jessica. That was some great information, and I'd love to talk more one-on-one outside of here about that company that you were talking about and getting their details out to the public. I think that's really important. Another thing, when I know I've talked to in regards to some strategy, we've talked, Mike, about I'm convinced that now we have a huge demographic of people that are aware and awakened to what's going on. And the creative in me is really focused on sometimes, branding, the marketing aspect, and also the artistic aspect that, the founders had when they created the revolution, and how they used words and language to inspire people to fight and take up the cause. And so that's where I really focus on too. And so what I've created is I have a local group it's called the Coalition Purple Rose. And I know we should combine our efforts on the idea that we must redress grievances the way the founders did. And so my tactics on this are basically, we have to have an individual redress for certain groups. Like we need an individual redress for police officers. We have to serve them paperwork and saying, this is what you're bound to do by your oath. If you don't do this, you're derelicting your duty. And that was a way to actually get God's favor, is that they said that they had to put down their grievances on paper and act honorably and exhaust their remedies, with the pen before anything else. And even then they said, we can't fire unless we're fired upon. But that matters. And what I think is I think we have God's favor because of our hearts automatically. We're addressing these grievances. So there's a separate redress for the legislatures. There's a separate redress of grievances that needs to be served on judges, and then the executive branch of government. And also these people in these type of corporations, they can be served too. And this is a legal notice, and legal notice when it goes to common law, these people are bound but to act upon this knowledge. And if they don't, they're basically in dereliction of their duty, but also in misprision of treason. And they're guilty of that. And these are federal crimes in the books. And there's laws to hold these people accountable for deprivation of rights, treason, numerous other ones. And I have the statutes, and a great resource too for common law in the field, in the legal field of the modern era in legislation, is nationallibertyalliance.org. And what I was thinking is with this redress, there's certain organizations we want to have under one umbrella, like for instance, the 10th Amendment Center, Convention of the States. We're doing the hashtag CPR, which stands for Constitutional Preservation and Restoration, or Coalition Purple Rose. And that symbol, what is the symbol of? Rose is a symbol of creation, the sovereignty of the people, that we are these people entitled to the same rights that formerly belonged to the king by his prerogative. And
let me interject. Let me just interject. I want you to continue, Joe, but I want to interject on what you're saying so people know everything. Yes. Joe's talking about. Like Joe, he's a state militia coordinator in Arizona. So Joe will be getting with me, and any links to any of these groups that he wants on his state page, local, that's relative to what's going on, I'll put them on there for him. And anything that anybody gives me that's relative, I can put on the website in general. So just keep in mind that right now I'm controlling the website. So any of these links and organizations, anybody feels they need to be on the website, I can create a blog with links to all of them or whatever we need to do. Just keep that in mind. Go ahead, Joe. Finish up.
Cool. And I will email you more of those websites too, so you have them. But this idea, and this is one thing that's exhausted me, because this has been my personal work as a political prisoner in federal custody, the research into the American jurisprudence and how they deviate in little. This is always their plan. The devil's the same as he was from the beginning till he is now. His propaganda, his tactics to cause division are always the same. And the same ways to acclimate people to being slaves is also the same. And we see a pattern when we look at American jurisprudence going back for the last 100 years, mostly after the 1960s. From 1968, you'll notice they did this in a more overt pattern if you research this, after they created the first felon prohibition on firearms in 1968. And then the same thing, they create degrees of citizenships. And when you create degrees of citizenships, you create one section of society different from the other. And what does that promote? Sectarianism. So in fact, who has the arguments that I was saying earlier about the judicial system? It's these people that are being manipulated. The useful idiots are used as pawns. And those are the ones that the left wing are recruiting as their Stalinist revolutionaries. And they're designed to that. And so
Right.
I get exhausted, but I do have a good foundation for a redress of grievances and doing it in a manner that's very tactical, going back to tactical civics. And I really need some help on it, honestly. Like all the common
Yeah.
law, Charles, you guys, please help me
Yeah,
on this.
I was
'cause
gonna say,
can't do
Joe,
this.
I was gonna say, Joe, connect with Charles again. Try to go out of your way to get in touch with Charles. He's a great resource. So, you know, his information's obviously on the National Militia Directory, so you can get his info right there.
Okay. And I also put mine in the chat.
Okay, great. And of course, yours is on the Arizona State page as well. Let's go to Dan and then back to you, Charles. Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. How you doing?
Hey, good, brother. Good to see you.
All right. Hey, listen, Mike, this is a really, really good meeting and everybody is really on top of things. And I'm really impressed. And what I want to say to everybody, as far as I'm concerned, is we need more Jessicas that know how to do stuff. And, you know, I think I got on here because I wanted to see what I can do to talk to people about, you know, how can I approach them and get them to join. I'm still having trouble with that, other short of wearing a t-shirt or putting a sign on my car or something. You know.
Yeah, let me give you just some thoughts real quick on that, Dan. And I appreciate that. Brian Traub, who's not here with us tonight, and I'm surprised by that. You know, he from the beginning was kind of one of our most proactive. Not only did he get shirts, but he made business cards and he's out there trying to talk to people in grocery stores and gas stations. He's got Jennifer, who's also a county coordinator in New Mexico, that he's talking to. So I think that what I'm trying to do at the same time that I'm doing all of this is I'm trying to kind of articulate kind of step-by-step things that can be done. I do have on the website a things to do kind of list, which is a start. You can kind of look that over and see what some of the things are that you can do. But go ahead.
Well, I'm doing it. Yeah. One thing I want to mention about, okay, these chemtrails. Some other ideas that I have learned on the internet is that they're hiding something up there. Number one, that's another possibility. And it's also improves communication from the satellites because of the atmosphere texture, and it helps communications. So there's a whole lot of reasons that stuff is being sprayed, and it is also weather control, and it's the HARP stuff. And so I don't know how you're going to get that to stop, or if any sheriffs are, I don't mean to discourage anybody, the guy in Ohio there going to a sheriff, but when you go into a sheriff, you got to remember he's a political puppet. So I don't think he's going to get much done, or he's going to.
Let me interject on that, Dan. I say, Joe, what Joe is doing is a big part of what we all need to be doing, because it's an opportunity ultimately to document. The first way to start holding people accountable, and you need to video record it, Joe.
I'm not saying not to do it. I'm just saying.
I know, Dan, and I don't mean to cut you off. You're going to continue.
Right.
I just want to make the point that is one of the big things we all need to do is that video recorder, man. Always have your camera and video record everything. And if they try to say, oh, you can't record, say, no, I have the right. This is a place of public accommodation. You're a public officer, the whole 9 yards. But go ahead, Dan.
Okay. And I want to remind everybody that Julian Assange is still in prison. Okay. I think we should be doing something about that. So I'm asking everybody here tonight to go to Facebook and find the Julian Assange page and do something for Julian Assange. They are persecuting him and torturing him. And if we can help anybody and save his life, if you stop and look at the parallels between what's going on with him and how they've shut him up and Jesus, I'm sorry, I'm going to draw the parallels. Okay, we're the people, we're standing by watching this guy get persecuted.
We
We're
are
not
being
doing- know,
ourselves.
I just want to bring that up. And then I'm surprised I haven't heard anything about the Ukraine war tonight.
Okay.
So I just want to say there's a guy on YouTube. His name is William Spaniel. He's really good. William Spaniel. He's a professor and he's got it together. And then there's the Duran, D-R-U-N. You want to watch those guys. And then one more thing and I'll get off. Today, Glenn Beck on BitChute interviewed Whitney Webb, and she wrote a 1,000-page book about Jeffrey Epstein, and it describes everything. So I'm just saying somebody might be interested in that. And then one more, and then look up Reality Check with Jay Widener. That was a good show even yesterday. You might understand a little bit better of what's going on and who's controlling the paycheck and who's spraying the atmosphere. Okay. If you listen to these guys, that might give you a little better insight where all this money's coming from. Because this money is being paid, somebody's reaping a benefit, and it's these billionaire people sitting up in their castles in Switzerland that are controlling the show here. Okay. Like BlackRock.
Yep.
You know, BlackRock owns like 90% of the planet almost. I mean, so if you want to know who's really in charge, and we're already there. So I just wanted to bring all that to everybody's attention so they can look into these things and be more enlightened. And now I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you very much. What's that?
Go ahead.
One thing really quick.
I'll mute.
Yeah, no, I just was thanking you, Dan, for all your great thoughts and insights. Everything he said will be in the chat, and I'm going to send this chat out when I send the video out as an attachment as well, so everybody will have it. We got hands up, Joe, but real quick, you were going to say something in response to what he said?
Yeah, just when it comes to reaching for like sheriffs, because honestly, you're going to have a harder time with chief of police, because they are policy enforcers and they're really indoctrinated by a college system that subverts everything.
Well, let's take that point and move, because I got to stay with the hands, Joe.
I know, really quick, one reference. It's really important. If you guys are familiar with Sheriff Mack, he has actually started the constitutional group of sheriffs.
Yeah, we promote him, Joe.
Look up the sheriffs on there.
Yeah.
They're people that should be reached out to. Find out if your sheriff is a constitutional member.
Yeah, keep your hand up, Joe, because I want you to say more on what you have on that. We do promote. I've promoted Sheriff Richard Mack quite a bit. I've done interviews with him, and I, have been a member. I didn't re-up my member this year. I will, but I haven't yet. But we have to go back to Charles, but we have more hands coming up. So I want to go back to Charles for a minute just to see what his thoughts are so far. And then Charles, we just kind of respond to what you've heard so far. If you have something, and then if you'll turn it over to Joseph, and then kind of take the reins to get through these hands, Charles.
Thank you, Michael. A lot of good discussion. Dan, we could be forming juries for Julian Assange. We can be forming juries on the Ukraine war. And the 7th Amendment indicates that our jury verdicts are very, very powerful and almost nobody can mess with them. So this is breakthrough legal technology that's empowering our grassroots common people. So please stay tuned, continue participating in these conferences, because we're on to new technology that when we've got militia as enforcement, our whole common law court movement can alter the nature of the oppressive evil empire system that we're presently laboring under.
I got to interject on that, Charles, because remember, while everything we're doing is lawful and peaceful and open and transparent and organized, because we're just organizing, militia is enforcement. So the more we organize and grow, the more of us there are that can, if we have to, use force to enforce, right? And they'll know that. That's why it's imperative that we keep growing as a force of people who are willing, if we have to use the force while we use the law to move forward. And having said that, and we're going to go to Joseph. I do want to just say one thing before we go to Joseph, that this thing about common law, Charles hit it. He's got approaches that have not been used before. Joseph, who's up next, these are my two guys that keep us all in check, because they'll yell at each other like little babies sometimes. I'm saying that in jest to be fun.
What country is Julian Assange in right now?
Go ahead, Charles. Go ahead and interact with Joe. He's always got good, challenging questions for you, and you guys can go back and forth, because I know Joe's gonna have some good questions. And Charles, you go back and forth with Joseph, and then we'll move on to Joe and Joe.
Well, I believe he's in England. Dan probably knows.
Well, then how can we form a jury? How are we going to put together a jury here in America for him over in England? What do we got to do with England?
Well, England is only holding him because America de facto government is asking England to hold him for prosecution and to.
Listen, we don't need to get into all that and worry about Julian Assange or anything like that. And
it's the answer to your question. I'm sorry you don't like the answer.
Well,
this is my kindergarten yard fight. I love when these two guys are talking. It just brings a little excitement to the show. We got to have that sometimes. But look, I think that, on the one hand, my dad's sitting there next to me. Joseph made his point, and my dad concurred. Yeah, that makes sense to him. But I'll go with Charles as well and say, I'm sure there's something that can be done where we require or demand that our government get him back here to the States. No, Charles? Is there a process that can be done whereby look, let me back up. Let's all back up. Who's in charge right now? The New World Order, one world government communists who make everybody think that they're in charge and they're over the states and the states over the counties, who run all the sheeple, right? No, we're the power. We, the people, are at the top. We are the authority, period, people. Start taking back your power and your authority, because we're it. And under us is our local jurisdictions, which is why we're always talking about locally holding people accountable with common law. And then the states, and then the little peon federal government. And we can hold them all accountable because we are the authority.
Yeah, well said, Mike.
You're right, Mike. You're right,
Joseph.
but we've elected people, and we have to elect people to represent us.
If we elect criminals, do we just let them get away with being criminals?
No, we have to. No, that's our job then, to go after them.
And how do we do that?
That's
how do we do that?
Well,
hold on,
first
Charles.
of all,
Charles, you can answer, but let me ask Joseph. How do we do that?
We have a de facto. Well, right now you have the de facto district of criminals in Washington D.C. You have a lawful.
So you're not answering the question.
You're
not answering the question, Joe. You're acknowledging they're criminals. So
again,
again,
we've been over this on my podcast show. We've been over this on my podcast show, Mike, many times. You know the answer.
Joe, I love you.
30,000 people in each state to re-inhabit the de jure republic. We've been over that.
Thank you, Joe. Now, I'm glad Joe brought that up, because this is significant. Joe does do Blog Talk Radio. Everybody really should join in on Tuesday nights and listen. It's in some ways better than doing the Zoom meetings, because now we're all glued to our table. But when I tune in on his show, man, I'm cooking dinner. I just put my phone on and set it on the table and cook, and I'm listening to his radio show. And he'll start taking callers, and he'll say, 305, who's that? Hey, Joe, it's me. And I'll start talking, and he'll give me time to speak. So a lot of good people come on his show and talk about a lot of good things. Charles, I'd highly encourage you. I invite you to come on and put your 2 cents in on his show, Charles, because they have a lot of different people on. The Republic for the United States of America, they're being challenged all the time. Charles challenges them. I'll challenge them. We'll put them on the spot. But the word is, and again, aside from me having waited for my ink that finally got here to print out, the complaint that Charles and I are working on, I also have to print out the Declaration of Sovereign Intent and read it on video, like I said I was going to do. So I have a lot of stuff to do here. But when I do that, the point is that the Republic for the United States of America, for those that don't know, and for those who watch this video, they are of the position, they claim that in 2010, you go ahead and say, what did they do, Joe? What did they do? What is the Republic? What did they do?
They filed by authority of the Jay Treaty and Northwest Ordinance, they filed the sovereign intent, letter of intent there with the Hague and World Court, which is signed by representatives over here. And it's a 141-page document. And I'm not going to read it for everybody and go over it tonight, because it would take forever, but go to the website, read the document. And actually declares the re-inhabitant of our de jure form of government, the republic, that was abandoned in don't quote me, what was it, 1861. The seats are still open to be filled, but some of the seats have been filled by, for instance, Jim Carpenter, the governor of the free state of Colorado. We held elections. I don't know where to begin, Mike. You're throwing a loaded question.
Let me interject back with you, Joe, because you already made the point. You made some good points. I'm sorry that Ernesto's not here. He was invited. He's a state militia coordinator along with Joe Malone in Arizona. And he told me he was involved with that movement and that it kind of fell apart in Arizona. He said they assassinated their state attorney in Arizona. And we know that, Tim, the original president ended up in jail. This brings up other questions. Like, I still want to know why, right? I mean, we know that they can fabricate things on people and get them in jail wrongfully, but at the same time, sometimes we give them the bait. We give them something honest and they take advantage of us to take us down. So we do have to walk the straight and narrow. We do have to have the clean nose. We do need to keep ourselves right. We can't be giving them anything honest, okay? So everybody needs to keep that in mind. But the point is that there it is, the Republic for the United States of America. Again, they claim, and the claim is, they are the lawful de jure government based on the first Constitution for the United States of America, accepted and acknowledged by the world courts, The Hague, and 141 other nations. And they need
have to have
30,
international. You have to have international standards. You have to have that. And for instance, the flag, the adoption of the flag. I'm sorry, the train going by right now. The flag. All this stuff to be recognized international. Remember, we have to do exchange. We have to exchange. We have to be recognized.
But
I'm not saying that we have to be.
But they have that, right?
Yes, yes. What I'm trying to say. Yeah.
So what they need is 30,000 people in every state to start voting for their representatives to fill that government. And then
that is in accordance. That is in accordance with the Northwest Ordinance. Okay.
Right. However, having said that, I brought this up, Joe has too. There's still the concern, what kind of game are we playing here? Because I've asked them, how are you going to fund? We know that the de facto government is run by the world communists that own all the banks and own everything. So that we know how they're funded. So how's this de jure government going to be funded? And I haven't got an answer for that yet.
They did actually, Mike. I actually listened to that. They did that, but there is silver coinage. The Republic has coined its own silver, yes. But the treasurer that we did have, I don't know what the governor there from Wisconsin. He gave you some explanation on my podcast show about he had passed away. But there is silver coin in the treasury for the Republic, yes. But funding is a very important aspect of this. Yes, very important. But we're not going to have a central bank printing fake money, are we? So we're going to get back into this mess again.
Right. So there's a lot of questions still, but it's worth looking into, which is why I have it linked at the top of the righteousarmy.org homepage. So people can get to the website, check it out, and know more about it. But again,
and Mike, real quick, there was a criminal complaint brought and filed in August, I believe it was, of 2010. Don't quote me. I sent it to you, Mike, copy of it. And we went over that also in the Zoom meeting one time. The criminal complaint against Obama and many so-called representatives in the de facto. There was grand jury put together. The grand jurors were put together. So this common law grand jury thing has been done already. The de facto does not recognize it. They will not recognize it. They will not. And what happens when we convict these people? We put together this jury. What happens next? What's the end game result?
Charles,
because, okay, we do Charles this way.
Yeah, let's hear Charles on that. Go ahead, Charles. But again, just to make the point real quick before you start talking, Charles, the point is, so it's clear to everybody that according to the Republic for the United States of America, they need 30,000 people in every state to start voting to get all the elected officials in there that are the government, the federal government from the de jure side of things, which again is kind of piddly in my opinion, because ultimately it's we the people and the local jurisdictions, that's the power. So they are kind of, to the extent that the federal government's the lowest authority, and they should be, and they're supposed to be, how relevant even is it? But yet we do need that government. So to the extent of getting 30,000 people in every state, well, then I guess that's what we need to also start making people aware of, and let's do it. Why not? It's better than having the de facto government. Let's see where it goes. Go ahead, Charles.
Thank you, Michael. The Seventh Amendment makes it clear that if you've got a jury verdict, you can do pretty much anything you want. You can go to enforcement. Okay, we don't need 30,000 people in every state. That's a bunch of smoke and mirrors. I think it's a COINTELPRO subversive plan, and I'm sorry that Joseph is buying into it. There's the common law provides much simpler power, grassroots empowering technology than all of that stuff that's coming through all the gurus that are fashionable and popular here. The good ideas are slowly percolating to the top. Thank you, Michael, for assisting in that. But we got to cut out the dead weight that don't have.
Okay, we get your verdict. We get your verdict, Charles. What happens after we get your verdict? After your common law jury gets its verdict, what do we do to Bill Gates? You're going to bring Bill Gates up on charges. What do we do?
Let me interject first, Charles, before you answer, because even the Republic acknowledges that they need the militia. Militia is the enforcement. And I'm sure that's what Charles was going to answer anyway, which is why, again, people, come on, all we're doing here is trying to unite and organize those of us who are of like mind, which is pretty much a little to the left of center and all.
Well, no, Mike, but my point is this, Mike, is that what Charles is doing is not going to be recognized. Okay, we're recognized. Okay, so now he gets his verdict. What's he going to do? Okay, he says now we get the militia behind us. We go try to grab Bill Gates or we serve Bill Gates with paperwork or whatever. They're going to laugh at you.
Well, wait.
You
No,
know,
because
what
I brought this up. I brought this up in another meeting, and I still haven't gotten an answer from James Geiger or Governor James or anybody else. I've said it before. Why are they not, if they are the official lawful government, why have they not reached out to The Hague and to other nations and said, we're under an illegal, unlawful, de facto government?
You want UN troops over here?
Let me make the point. Let me make the point. Why do not they reach out to get us the backing so that the militia can rise, knowing that they have the support of the UN and the blue hats?
What backing do you want?
In other words, we know that the de facto, we know that if let's say 1 million Americans strong rose up now, let's say with arms, we're tired of this, we're going to go in there and clean up Washington. They're going to be quashed by the blue hats, the UN, and the de facto, because they've got it going on with the rest of the world.
Correct. But if you get 30,000 in each state, guess what? The de facto loses its credit rating and in the world markets, it loses all its world influence. Okay, that's key.
How?
Because they're no longer in law, in standing around the world. They're no longer internationally recognized because the republic has been re-inhabited fully. Under law, everything is done by law around the world.
Charles, what about that fact that by law, per law, when we have 30,000 in each state, that's law, makes us the legit government?
Well, there's different, the present government is de facto lawless. All we have to do is figure out some mechanism to prove that our spokespeople are more lawful than the de facto, and then move to take power from them. Now, Joseph,
this isn't roll the wheel, spin the wheel. Let's see who's more convinces who. The law is the law.
All right, hold on. This is an issue we'll have to come back on. I'm going to move on to Jessica right now. Raise your hand again, Joe, if you want to, but go ahead, Jessica. You're muted right now.
All right.
There you go.
I can't see you guys, but maybe you can see me.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say there's so much going on. I'm willing to help. One thing we need to remember about if we want to make something happen is not focusing really on petitions getting signed and this and that, but praying to God and getting direction. But I think we need to remember that the paper that is used in the Dominion voting machines, if you do your own research and you look up where the textiles and paper products have been, the imports to the USA from China, and where the ballots were produced, the paper itself, 70% in China. Just want to say that. India is now the fastest growing country and they're economically growing out of all, even Switzerland. That is kind of crazy. And even banks such as SunTrust, who have 40 different facilities under different names like S&S Bank or whatever, have their headquarters and calling centers, etc., in India up 200% since 2019. And India, there are children, there are villages. You can even look on Netflix for documentaries that these orphanages are, these children have been subjugated to vaccine testing. Bill Gates is behind it. They have lost their members of their arms and legs, and like they, that's a big thing. And all of that being set aside, we can exercise with proof, and we can go to our election commissions, attend the meetings, and in a peaceful way change a law, even if it's one county at a time in a state by state measure. And but the ballot papers, one thing to look at, New Zealand, and also the Prime Minister of all things Denmark. All of those hold accountability because they're all tied in with our S&S Bank and the digital currency, and also Hunter Biden and Biden himself and Hillary Clinton have held state global office board positions or something of that nature. New Zealand, Denmark, closely related to the Prime Minister of Denmark, Australia, and India. We should watch. Also, Japan. Don't know what's going on there, but there's something going on with Japan. I think they're kind of divided like we are. And also another thing, in China, there are more Christians than there are socialists, but they're just not able to discuss it. But there are a lot of Christians in China, and their dictatorship prevents it. Other than that, I've enjoyed you guys, and I'm sorry if I said so much. I go down God gives me wisdom, and I just want to share it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. No, thanks for those great insights. I kind of want to piggyback on a little bit of what you said there, but I kind of lost my thought because you did say a lot, and you had many great thoughts coming up in my mind that I wanted to respond with. When it comes back to me, I'll interject again. But thanks, and raise your hand again if you have more thoughts to share. Thank you.
I'm going to leave you guys alone. Thank you, guys, and I'm going to listen now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. I do want to make a point here real quick because I do want to end this meeting. I don't want it to go on ad nauseum. We've believe it or not done 9-hour meetings before. I want to at least cut the video here shortly so that I upload a video that's not more than 2 hours long, and we can keep talking after I stop the video here in a second. But I want people to know that the ultimate thing here is that the people need to take their power. That's the point. We need to take back our power. And the thought that lost me, it came back to me now, is there's been some movements going on as well with this thing about the bonds. I'm sure most, if not all, have heard about the bond thing where you can pull the bonds, right? In other words, these government officials are sworn to uphold the Constitution. And when they violate that, they're all bonded. Rick Martin came on a meeting a couple weeks ago and he nailed it. I'm pretty sure I uploaded that video. It might be the last one that I uploaded 1 or 2 ago, but Rick Martin really nailed that issue. I think it's titled, guest speaker Rick Martin on the video. It's a good one to listen to because Rick Martin really addressed that issue of indemnity bonds, right? That when they have that, if they violate the law, here's what David Strait always says: don't complain, file a claim. And I know that I've spent a lot of time filing complaints and it doesn't get you anywhere. We need to file a claim based on the fact that they violated the law and violated our rights under law with their insurance company, who then has to pay out. And then that person whose bond had to be paid out on loses their job. So in a nutshell,
they pay out that bond, Mike. That claim has to be heard by a judge, and you're going in front of a de facto judge, not a lawful judge. And that's true because I work as an officer, and I go through an insurance company. And if the insurance company decides not to insure me, I lose my job. Okay, right. But you're not gonna go. But that claim you'll never win in a court.
You don't necessarily have to go before a judge. I mean, we've all heard of.
Well, who's going to enforce the claim then?
We've
Who's
all
gonna
heard,
enforce the claim?
we all know that insurance companies file out of court all the time. If you have
Yeah,
a
yeah.
strongly written, accurate, indisputable claim that's being made, that's a affidavit that's filed and it's foolproof, it's a no-win. You won. They violated.
I
the
don't
law.
know. Yeah, as the CEO of an insurance company, Mike, eventually they're going to say, "We ain't paying this." It's all up to somebody has to make that decision to pay.
Well, great. Well, great, but do it. I mean, people do win quite often, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to go to court. So it's certainly an avenue to pursue.
Yes, it is.
Tave, go ahead, and then we'll move on to Joe, and then I'll let Charles have some final thoughts if he has any, and then I'm going to go ahead and.
There's only two ways to save America. Two ways. Either we got to change the Constitution with the Convention of States, or we got to get rid of the evil that's running the country. Going to the sheriffs and doing whatever is not going to make no difference. Numbers of people. It's the only thing that's going to make a difference. I mean,
Yeah, Clinton. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, you're right, Clinton. There's a lot of truth to what you just said there, but
Yeah.
again, there is that
I've been a
fine
member of
line.
states for a long time, and I'm telling you,
Yeah,
it's, we got to
Problem,
have
I
38
I-
states.
nobody wants to talk about it anymore. And me and Charles brought this up probably in the third or fourth meeting. We're under Noahide laws. Does anybody even have a clue as to what that is, what that means? Because all the stuff with the courts is null and void.
No.
Because the president, since Jimmy Carter was in office, has signed us to be in and under Noahide laws. With that being said, when you go against this de facto government, and this group that's now in this election cycle that's going to determine what's going to happen for the remainder of our lives, probably, and your children and your grandchildren. What happens now if they win and they steal another election or whatnot, and these people stay in power? When they exercise those Noahide laws, the 7 of them, and you go against them, best believe you go to the gallows and you are beheaded. That is in the laws. That's what they signed to. And it's unbelievable that nobody wants to talk about that.
Hey, so be it.
Under
So
the
be it.
sun, we can do everything under the sun to change judges, sheriffs, whatever. The people in power have stayed in power for so long and run this cycle. They are
Right.
not going
Right.
out, and they're not going to be removed easily.
All right, I'm
Period.
actually going to end the recording here. And we can keep talking, but again, I don't want the recording to go too long. Is there anything you need to get on the recording, Joe Malone? I mean, because we
Yeah,
can all talk. We all know there's problems, and
I would
yes,
like-
this way and no that way, and we all
Yeah.
have different opinions. I just don't want to have too much of that on the recording. We've already got a
All
lot
right,
of
well,
that.
just one final note on what he was saying. When he says it comes to numbers, like that's why I was bringing up the constitutional sheriffs and people like Sheriff Richard Mack. More people are awakened than ever before. The numbers are there. We just still have to go and pick them up. And I was saying I've had the best success just recently in the last week. And I was talking about branding, the symbolism. I think this is key. Sitting down with people, and if everyday regular people like the men I've been talking to, fathers, are actually up and down for joining the militia instead of seeing us as radicals, that shows the numbers are there. But we just have to take the steps forward, organize us, show them that our friends and neighbors. And when you say get local, that's all that matters. If you get local, you will get the numbers, and that will
Right.
change. But yeah, it can be done. And yes, you can go to your sheriffs and you can get the people. You need to protest, like Abraham Lincoln said. You know, fear will make coward of men when they should be protesting. I may have
Right.
butchered
Yeah.
that a little bit, but we need to protest.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think, in opposition a little bit to what you're saying there, Dave, I agree with Joe. I know Charles does too. We have to at least give our sheriffs the opportunity and try to do our best to have constitutional sheriffs in there, because if we do and they're standing for us, there are sheriffs around the country right now that are saying, I'm ready to deputize my citizens if I have to
We're
uphold their
going to
rights.
have to do that.
So we
But
need
that's
more
the work.
sheriffs like that. Make sure you get me elected as the sheriff of Miami-Dade County. We haven't had one here and throughout my life. We're going to actually be voting on a sheriff in 2024. I'd love to be that sheriff. It ain't going to happen because you got to have money. If I could put a sign up on every street corner, maybe I'd be the next sheriff here, and that would be cool. But I'm going to go ahead and end the recording. We'll
Not
keep
enough
chatting,
of
you
them.
guys.
There's not
And
enough
they did
sheriffs.
that.